Jesus, when he came to this world, he came to be something for us. Not only to be someone for us, but to be something for us. And the thing that he came to be for us was, you could name it as the gap. Meaning is, when you look at a gap, Mama, come here. Come here. Gabriel, come here. Gabriel, stand right here. Stand right here. Stay there. So this is us. When Jesus came, you see there's an emptiness, a space between them. There's nothing in between them. So when Christ came to be that gap, meaning to fill in the gap, he came to fill in the gap, to protect us. But not only to fill in the gap, but he also came to be a bridge. So he came to be a bridge. So now through me acting as Christ, although I'm not Christ, but I'm just making a scenario here so you can understand. Right. So as I'm being the role of Christ and they being the role of the lost children, I came in to fill in the gap. I came in to be the bridge. It's like if you look at the way the technology took place today. Back in 1989, the only communication was telephones in the house. Understand what I'm talking about? But when you left the house, there was no other form of way of communication. You guys are not understanding this. So in the early to mid 90s, when they started making beepers, not just for doctors, because back in the late 80s it was for doctors. It was too expensive for anyone to afford, unless you had the money like that. So back into the, when you go back to the mid 90s to the early 90s to mid 90s, when they started releasing the beepers to the people, to the public, that was a somewhat of a way to fill in the gap, but it still wasn't the bridge. You guys are not following. The toll booth is the gap, but you cannot go through the bridge first without going through the gap. So when you go through the toll booth, that toll booth fills in the gap, so it gives you the access to go to the bridge. So going to the mid-90s to almost just a little bit a year after the mid-90s, and I'm talking about between 94 to 96 when they started releasing the cell phones. Because back in the early 90s there was the Will Smith cell phone. Was the Motorola. Motorola was the first company that made cell phones. It was a cell phone that was heavier than these guys. But when between 94 to 96, when they started releasing the cell phones, beepers were starting to disappear. You know why? Because you no longer need that gap. It's time to cross the bridge. So what happened was, when the cell phones started coming through, that's when we was able to not only communicate through the house, but anywhere we go. But what's the point of having the gap being filled and having the bridge, but there's still no communication signal? So that's why Christ came here to show us what we're reading in Galatians about faith. These people knew